The morning of Lily's graduation was bright and warm, the kind of day you think will be remembered for all the right reasons. I woke up early, even though I'd barely slept the night before. My mind was full of memories, of Lily's first day of school, her awkward teenage years, her late-night study sessions. And now, here she was about to walk across a stage and receive her degree. I dressed carefully that morning. Not because I wanted to stand out, but because I wanted her to look back at the photos and see a mother who was proud. I wore a pale blue dress she'd once told me was her favorite on me. I curled my hair like I used to when she was a little girl and would sit on my bed, watching me get ready, saying, "You look like a princess, Mom." The graduation hall was already filling when I arrived. Families were everywhere, parents holding bouquets, grandparents shuffling along, siblings taking selfies. I spotted a small flower stand outside and decided to buy her lilies. She'd always loved them. They were the flowers I carried when I first brought her home from the hospital. I took my seat near the middle rows, where I could see the stage clearly. My heart swelled when I spotted her in her black gown and cap, a golden honor cord draped around her neck. She looked beautiful, confident, so much older than the little girl I used to walk to school. I waved when she glanced my way. She gave a small smile, then looked elsewhere. The ceremony felt long, but in a way I didn't mind. Each name called was a reminder that my daughter's name was coming soon. When they announced Lily Parker, I clapped so hard my hands stung. She walked across the stage, shook hands with the dean, and took her diploma. My eyes blurred with tears. After the ceremony, the crowd spilled outside onto the university lawn. It was chaos, laughter, shouts, cameras flashing everywhere. I held onto the bouquet tightly, weaving through the crowd to find her. I finally spotted her near a group of her friends, Rebecca standing beside her in a bright red dress, holding a gift bag. Rebecca, the stepmother. She was younger than me, always perfectly dressed, always smiling like life was a photo shoot. She'd been in Lily's life for a few years, and I'd really tried to be civil. But over time, I saw how Lily's visits to me became less frequent, how her calls grew shorter. Rebecca gave her expensive gifts, trips to the coast, dinners at fancy restaurants. I couldn't compete with that, not in terms of money, anyway. I walked toward them, ready to give Lily her flowers. She spotted me, and for a moment, I thought she'd run over to hug me like she used to. But instead, she turned to Rebecca, wrapped her arms around her tightly, and said in a loud, clear voice that carried over the crowd, "You're the only mom I ever needed." The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I froze. The people around us glanced at me, some with awkward sympathy, others pretending not to notice. Rebecca's smile grew wider, as if she'd just won something. Lily didn't even glance my way after saying it. I felt my throat tighten. My hands gripped the stems of the lilies so hard that one of them snapped. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to tell her about all the nights I stayed awake sewing costumes for her school plays, about the weekends I skipped outings so she could go on field trips, about the birthdays I made special even when I couldn't afford much. But I didn't. Instead, I walked the last few steps toward her, held out the bouquet, and said softly, "Congratulations, Lily." My voice didn't shake, though my heart was pounding. She took the flowers with a polite thank you, as if I were just another guest at the party. I turned and walked away. The sun was still shining, the air still warm, but it all felt cold to me. My footsteps were steady, even though I wanted to run. Behind me, I heard laughter and the sound of a camera shutter, capturing a moment I didn't belong in. I didn't cry, not there, not in front of anyone. But as I reached my car and closed the door, the silence hit me. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I'd been humiliated before in life, divorce, job struggles, moments where I'd had to swallow my pride. But this was different. This was my own daughter. I sat there for a few minutes, just breathing, just thinking. Her words replayed in my mind. "You're the only mom I ever needed." I knew that if I reacted in anger now, I'd regret it later. So I started the car, drove home slowly, and decided that whatever I did next, it would be calm, deliberate, and unforgettable. The house was quiet when I got home. I set my car keys on the small tray by the door and stood there for a moment, listening to the kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. The bouquet wrapper crackled when I took it out of my bag. Lily's lilies. I placed the flowers on the kitchen table, their white petals still perfect, still open, like nothing ugly had happened today. I poured myself a glass of water and sat down. The chair scraped the floor, sharp in the quiet. I kept seeing her face on that lawn, bright and happy, her arms wrapped around Rebecca. The words kept replaying in my mind as if someone had recorded them and pressed loop. "You're the only mom I ever needed." I didn't cry. I thought I would. I felt the pressure behind my eyes, that heavy burn. But no tears came. Instead, I just breathed. In and out. I counted the breaths like I used to do when money was tight, and I had to choose between the electric bill and groceries. 1, 2, 3. Calm down. Think. Don't say anything you can't take back. Don't do anything you'll regret. I took a small notebook from the drawer. It was the one I used for lists, rent due dates, grocery prices, reminders. The cover was bending at the corners. I wrote a single sentence on a clean page. What is the right thing to do now? I looked at those words for a long time. My mind went back to years that no one sees when they look at a pretty graduation photo. The nights I sat at the kitchen table sewing a costume because her class needed one and we couldn't afford to buy it. The mornings I walked into work with wet hair because I'd spent the last minutes packing Lily's lunch. The times I told myself, she's worth it. She'll remember this. One day she'll know. And then I saw Rebecca's gift bags. The red dress. The loud, easy laughter. I remembered how Lily started comparing. Rebecca says this place is outdated. Rebecca thinks we should travel more. Rebecca says I deserve nicer things. It had been slow at first. A little distance, a few missed calls. Then it was like a door closing. Not slammed. Just pushed quietly until I had to press my ear against it to hear anything inside. I stood up and went to the hallway closet. On the top shelf was a blue file box with a rubber band around it. It was heavy when I took it down and carried it back to the table. Inside were neat folders with labels in black marker: mortgage, taxes, insurance, deed. I lifted the deed folder and pulled out the paper. My name, in printed letters, sat on the first line. The townhouse. The one Lily and her fiancé were living in. I kept that townhouse for Lily after the divorce. It wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, a little yard, a small porch with a squeaky step. But it was safe. It was steady. A place to start. When she and her fiancé asked to move in last year, I didn't ask for rent. Just help with utilities and keep it clean, I'd said. When you both have stable jobs, we'll talk. I thought I was teaching her to stand on solid ground. I thought I was giving her a chance to rise without falling through. I read the deed slowly, like I was reading it for the first time. I ran my finger along the date. Paid off. Fully mine. No co-owners. No second signatures required. My pen was still lying on the notebook. I put a new line under my first question and wrote another. If she doesn't see me as her mother, why am I still acting like one? That sentence hurt. It felt cold to write it. But I left it there because it was honest. I wasn't angry the way people think of anger. It wasn't fire. It was a stone. A quiet weight in my chest. I opened the insurance folder, then taxes, then utilities. My handwriting was on every bill. Proof of all the times I had kept the lights on, fixed the leaking sink, hired a man to clean the gutters. There were sticky notes with reminders. Replace smoke alarm batteries, March. Fence repair, ask Luis. Water heater check, November. I had built a shelter for her with my hands, my money, my sleep, my planning. I had done it with love. And now, after today, I had to ask what love looked like when it was not respected. I made tea even though it was warm outside. I like something warm to hold when I think. I took the mug to the living room and sat on the couch where the cushion dips just a little. My phone screen lit up. A group message from relatives. Photos of Lily in her cap and gown. A picture of her and Rebecca, cheek to cheek. I put the phone face down and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the room had shifted from afternoon to evening. The light was softer. A bird called outside, and then quiet. I picked up my phone and scrolled until I reached the contact labeled real estate, S. Patel. She was the agent who helped me buy the townhouse. I didn't call. Not yet. I tapped on attorney M. Rhodes. The office would be closed now. I placed the phone back on the table, screen down again. Sleep on it, I told myself out loud. My voice sounded steady. If it still feels right in the morning, act. I washed the mug. I watered the lilies in the vase. I turned off the kitchen light and went to my bedroom. On my dresser was a photo of Lily at age 7, missing 2 teeth, proudly holding a participation ribbon from a school race. I picked it up. I am not your enemy, I whispered to that girl. I am your mother. I slept lightly. I dreamed of walking down a long hallway where every door was a moment with Lily. Her first bicycle, her first heartbreak, her first apartment keys. At the end of the hallway was today's door. I reached for the handle. It was cold. I opened it anyway. I woke up before dawn. The house felt different in the early light. Clean. Honest. I made coffee, sat at the table, and opened the notebook. I drew a line under last night's questions and started a list called boundaries. No more paying for her life while she disrespects me. No shouting. No cruel words. Stay calm, stay simple. Give clear notice. Follow the law. No surprises. If she wants to talk, I will listen. But I will not beg for a place in my own child's heart. I looked up local tenant rules on my laptop. The words were dry and practical. Month-to-month occupancy, 30-day notice to terminate, written notice required, proof of delivery recommended. I took notes carefully. There would be no messy, rushed move. No throwing her out at midnight. I wasn't that kind of person. I wanted a boundary, not revenge for revenge's sake. I felt steadier after reading. Structure calms me. When the time showed 9:01 a.m., I picked up the phone and called the attorney's office. The receptionist knew me. "Hi, Ms. Parker," she said warmly. "How can we help?" "I need to discuss ending a month-to-month arrangement at a property I own," I said. "I want to do everything the right way." She scheduled me for an afternoon call with Mr. Rhodes. I thanked her and hung up. I sat very still, listening to the low hum of the refrigerator. There was no rush of relief, only a deep, even breath. I was choosing a path. I could walk it. Around noon, I drove to the townhouse. I told myself I was just checking the yard, but I knew it was more than that. I parked down the street. I didn't want to make a scene or start a fight. The little maple tree out front had grown since last spring. The porch still had that squeaky step, but the pots I had left with herbs were dry. Through the window, I could see the couch I'd given her. A TV was on low. I saw my daughter's shoes by the door, the white sneakers I bought her when she started college. The sight of them felt like a hand closing around my heart. The door opened. Lily stepped out, phone pressed to her ear, laughing. She wore a new jacket, smooth and expensive. She didn't see me. For a second, I thought of calling her name. I thought of saying, "Do you like living here? Do you feel lucky, Lily?" But those words would come out wrong. They would sound bitter. I didn't want bitterness. I wanted truth. I stayed behind the maple tree until she went back inside. Then I walked up to the porch, ran my hand along the railing to check the wood. It needed a fresh coat of paint. My instinct was to note the color, to plan a weekend, to fix it myself. I pulled my hand away and stepped back. Not this time, I told myself. Not anymore. On the way home, the radio played a song she loved when she was 15. The one we sang with the windows down, laughing at the wind tangling our hair. I reached for the volume, and then let it play. I can hold two truths at once, I thought. I can love her, and I can stop carrying what she refuses to see. At 3:00, I spoke with Mr. Rhodes. I explained everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You're within your rights, Ms. Parker. We'll prepare a 30-day notice to terminate the occupancy. We'll also draft a polite cover letter explaining your decision. No need to mention the graduation incident. Keep it factual." "Thank you," I said. My voice was steady. "I'd like the letter to be kind but clear." "Of course," he said. "Kind but clear." When I hung up, I sat for a while, the phone in my hand, the afternoon sun warming the table. I thought of Lily's face when she opened that envelope. Shock. Anger. Maybe tears. I did not enjoy imagining that. It made my stomach twist. But I also imagined something else, a door opening inside her, not slamming, just opening a little. A place where respect could live. A place where she might think about who showed up when it was hard, not just who made life look easy. I called the real estate agent next. "I may be listing a property," I told her. "Not immediately, there's a notice period. But I want to get the process ready." She asked for the address, the condition, the last updates. I answered everything simply. When we ended the call, she said, "I know this is probably personal. I'll handle it quietly." I thanked her again. People think good agents sell houses. The best ones also carry secrets without dropping them. I printed a copy of the deed and placed it with the notes from the attorney. I made a folder just for this decision and wrote townhouse, transition on the tab. I put it in the blue box with the others. Then I cleaned the table, wiped a small circle of water the vase had left, and opened the window to let in evening air. Somewhere down the street a child was learning to ride a bike, her father jogging beside her, saying, "I'm here. I'm right here." The sound caught in my throat. I cooked a simple dinner and ate alone. I did not look at my phone. When the sky turned purple, I stepped outside and stood on the back steps. The air smelled like cut grass. I wrapped my arms around myself and whispered, "You did the hard things when no one was watching. You can do this too." I went back in, washed my plate, and put it away. Before bed, I wrote one more line in my notebook. This isn't punishment. This is a boundary. Boundaries are love with edges. I slept better that night. Not deep, but sweeter. When morning came, the lilies on the table were even more open, like small white suns. I made coffee and sipped it while the printer hummed, spitting out the draft notice Mr. Rhodes had emailed at dawn. The language was plain, respectful, formal. It asked Lily and her fiancé to vacate the property within 30 days, as permitted by law. It thanked them for their tenancy. It wished them well. I read it 3 times. My hand hovered over the pen. I waited for the voice that says, "Don't do it. Say it was all a mistake. Take care of her forever." It didn't come. I signed. I placed the notice in an envelope along with a brief letter I wrote in my own words. No accusations. No history lesson. Only truth. I've supported you as best as I could. It's time for you to build your life with your own hands. I believe you can. I sealed the envelope and wrote her name on the front. My handwriting looked like it did when I wrote her name on kindergarten notebooks. It hurt and healed at the same time. I drove to the post office. The clerk weighed the envelope and asked if I wanted tracking. "Yes," I said. My voice surprised me with how calm it sounded. When I stepped back into the sunlight, I held the receipt like a small anchor in my palm. On the way home, I didn't turn on the radio. The streets were ordinary and kind. A man walking his dog, a teenager on a skateboard, a woman carrying a bag of oranges. Life goes on, I thought. Even when hearts are heavy. Even when decisions are sharp. Back at my kitchen table, I placed the receipt in the blue box and closed the lid. I smoothed my hand over it once, the way you might smooth a blanket over a sleeping child. Then I straightened the lilies in their vase and whispered, to no one and to everyone, it's done. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I felt like a woman who had finally stood up inside her own life. I picked up my phone, opened a blank text to Lily, and wrote, "I hope you had a wonderful day yesterday. I'm proud of your hard work." I read it twice. I hit send. Then I sat very still and listened to the quiet house breathe with me. I thought of the coming days, the envelope arriving, the call that would follow, the storm of words. I pictured myself inside that storm, not shouting back, not running. Just standing. Calm. Kind. Clear. The decision was made. The path was set. And for the first time since the graduation lawn, my heart felt steady enough to carry me forward. The envelope arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I knew it because at exactly 5:46 p.m., my phone rang and Lily's name lit up the screen. For a moment, I stared at it frozen. The house was quiet, the lilies on my table now beginning to curl at the edges, a little wilted. I had been waiting for this call ever since I signed the notice. My chest tightened, but my hand was steady as I answered. Her voice came sharp, almost breaking. "Mom, what is this? You're selling the house? You're actually selling it." I took a slow breath before answering. "Yes, Lily. I gave notice. You have 30 days. There was a stunned pause on the line, followed by the sound of her breath catching. "Are you serious? Where are we supposed to live? We just got settled. You knew this was our home. How could you do this?" I closed my eyes, leaning back in the chair, letting her words wash over me. My heart ached, but I reminded myself of the notebook on the counter, the word I had written clearly, boundaries. "You'll have to ask your only mom," I said, my voice calm low. The silence that followed was heavy, almost deafening. Then came the sound of a choked laugh, bitter and confused. "Oh my God, you're punishing me for what I said at graduation. That's what this is. You're actually taking it that far." I didn't raise my voice. "This isn't punishment, Lily. It's reality. I have supported you for years, given you a place to live, taken care of the bills. But you made it clear, very clear, who you think your real mother is. I heard you. I believe you. And now it's time you stand on your own." Her breath hitched on the other side of the phone. For a moment, I thought she might cry. Instead, she snapped. Rebecca would never do something this cruel. She actually loves me. I almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. My lips curved into something between sadness and disbelief. "Then I'm sure she'll open her doors for you," I said. The line went dead. She had hung up. I sat there long after the call ended, the phone still warm in my hand. My chest felt hollow but also steady. It was a strange mix of pain and strength, like breaking a bone to set it straight again. The following days were quiet, but I could feel the storm building. On Saturday morning, a knock rattled my front door. When I opened it, there stood Lily, her arms crossed, Rebecca right behind her with that perfect, rehearsed smile. Lily's fiancé, Daniel, hovered a few feet away, uncomfortable but present. "Mom, we need to talk," Lily said sharply, pushing past me into the living room without waiting for permission. Rebecca followed like she owned the space. Daniel gave me an apologetic shrug and stepped inside carefully. I closed the door and turned to face them. My living room, once peaceful, now felt crowded with tension. Lily dropped the notice onto the coffee table like it was evidence in a trial. "You can't just throw us out. This is insane." I stayed standing, arms folded loosely. "It's not insane. It's the law. You were living there month to month. I gave you legal notice. 30 days. Rebecca leaned forward, her voice syrupy but sharp. "Evelyn, don't you think this is a little dramatic? She's your daughter. You raised her. You don't just take her home away because you're upset." I turned to her slowly, meeting her eyes. "Rebecca, with all due respect, you've been in Lily's life for a few years. I've been here for over 2 decades. Don't tell me how to mother my child." For once, her smile faltered. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, scratching his neck. "Look, we're not saying you didn't do a lot, Evelyn. We know you did. But—" I cut him off, my tone steady. "But what? That I should keep paying for their life while being told I'm no longer her mother? No, Daniel. No more." Lily's face turned red, her eyes brimming with tears. "You're making me homeless. You're ruining my life for no reason." I softened my voice, though my words stayed firm. "Lily, I'm not making you homeless. You and Daniel are both working. You're adults. You can rent an apartment, pay bills, just like everyone else. This is not the end of your life. It's the beginning of you learning responsibility." Her hands shook as she pointed at me. "This is because I called Rebecca my mom, isn't it? You're jealous of her. That's what this is all about." Rebecca placed a hand on her arm as if to steady her, her expression painted with concern. I exhaled slowly. "No, Lily. This is about respect. You humiliated me in public, in front of family, friends, strangers. You told the world I was nothing to you. I could have screamed. I could have argued. But I didn't. I smiled. I gave you flowers. I walked away. Now I'm giving you something else, freedom. And responsibility." Her mouth opened and closed like she couldn't find words. For the first time in years, she looked young again. Not the proud graduate, but the child who used to cling to me when she was afraid. But then her face hardened. "Fine," she snapped. "If that's how you want it, don't expect me to come running back when you realize what a mistake you've made." She grabbed the notice, stormed out, Rebecca following with a satisfied look that quickly disappeared when she realized I wasn't moved by her theatrics. Daniel muttered a quick, "I'm sorry," before trailing after them. The door closed. The house was quiet again. The following week, word spread among relatives. A cousin called me, whispering like it was gossip. "Evelyn, I heard you're making Lily move out. Is it true?" Others sent texts ranging from judgmental, "She's your only child, don't be so harsh," to quietly supportive, "I'm proud of you for standing your ground." I didn't respond to most. People only see the surface. They don't know the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the humiliations swallowed over and over again. One evening, as I watered the lilies on the table, I got another call from Lily. This time her voice was lower, softer, almost pleading. "Mom, please. I didn't mean it that way. I was just excited, I wasn't thinking. Don't sell the house. Please, I'll do better." For a moment, my chest cracked. The instinct to protect, to forgive, to sweep it all away, it surged. But I steadied myself. "Lily, I love you. But love isn't free when it's disrespected. This isn't about me being angry. This is about you standing on your own 2 feet. You'll be okay. You're strong enough." She sniffled, whispered something I couldn't catch, and hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, my heart heavy but firm. A week later, Rebecca called me herself. Her tone was sugar-coated but firm underneath. "Evelyn, I think we can work something out. Maybe you let them stay, and I'll help with part of the expenses. It doesn't have to be so extreme." I smiled faintly at the irony. Rebecca, who had all the money for gifts, trips, and luxury, was now unwilling to take full responsibility. "No, Rebecca," I said calmly. "If you want to help, you can open your own home to them. That's what mothers do." Her silence was sharp. "That's not really possible right now," she muttered before quickly ending the call. And that was the truth. Rebecca's love was for show, the kind that looks good in photos, but doesn't hold weight when things get hard. As the 30 days counted down, I felt the shift. The townhouse that once symbolized shelter now became a symbol of boundaries. For the first time, Lily was facing the real world without my net beneath her. And though it broke my heart, I also knew this was the only way she'd ever learn the difference between someone who buys her attention and someone who builds her foundation. The notice wasn't just paper. It was a mirror, and Lily was finally forced to look at it. The next morning began earlier than usual. Lydia woke before the alarm, the soft gray light of dawn seeping through the curtains. For a moment, she lay still, listening to the house breathe. The same walls, the same floorboards, but a different weight hung in the air. She thought of the letter, the empty bank accounts, the storage unit with its stolen silver and cheap electronics. She thought of her daughter asleep in the other room, broken pride sitting like stones in her chest. When Lydia swung her legs out of bed, her feet found the old rug cool and steady. She dressed carefully, a simple blouse, pressed slacks, shoes that carried history in every crease. She tied her hair back, looked once in the mirror, and nodded. Today wasn't about appearances, it was about steps. Real steps that would decide what the next years would look like. In the kitchen, Janet was already awake, stirring sugar into a mug of coffee. "I figured you'd be up early," she said with a small smile. "I couldn't sleep long," Lydia admitted. "Too much on the list." Janet handed her a mug. "Then let's tackle it one by one." By 8 o'clock, Ava stumbled into the kitchen, her face pale, her hair in a loose knot. She looked younger somehow, like the teenager who used to drag herself to the breakfast table before school. She sat down heavily, wrapping her hands around the mug Lydia slid in front of her. "Didn't think I'd sleep at all," Ava whispered. "But I did." "Sleep heals more than you think," Lydia replied. "Now eat something. You'll need your strength." Ava nibbled a piece of toast but didn't finish it. Her eyes kept darting toward the folder on the table, the one with the deed and the letter inside. At 9 sharp, they drove to the lawyer's office. It was a modest building, the kind with blinds drawn halfway and diplomas lined up on the wall. Ms. Alvarez, a sharp woman in her 50s with calm eyes, shook their hands and motioned for them to sit. "Tell me everything," she said. Lydia explained. Not with embellishment, not with tears, just the clean facts. The emptied accounts, the fake credit card, the storage unit, the letter, the attempt to touch her house through the equity application. Ms. Alvarez listened, her pen moving steadily across the legal pad. When Lydia finished, she set the pen down. "Here's what we'll do. Ava will dispute the fraudulent credit account immediately. That's identity theft. Lydia will secure your deed through a living trust in your name. That prevents anyone else from filing claims without your consent. And we'll draft a clear property agreement that states Ava lives here by your permission, not as an equal owner." Ava flinched. "That sounds like you're taking the house away from me." Lydia met her daughter's eyes. "I'm protecting it, and protecting you. If you want to live here, you will. But it will be under safety, not under threat." Ava looked down, her cheeks flushing. "I understand." For 2 hours, papers slid across the desk. Lydia signed her name slowly, each stroke of the pen anchoring her place more firmly than words ever could. Ava signed her own forms, her hands steadier now than the night before. By noon, the process was set in motion. On the drive home, Ava was quiet until she finally whispered, "I don't deserve your help after how I treated you." Lydia kept her eyes on the road. "You're right," she said simply. "But deserving isn't the measure here. You're my daughter. That's the measure." Tears welled in Ava's eyes. She turned toward the window and let them fall silently. That afternoon, they went to the hardware store. Lydia chose a new deadbolt, sturdy and plain. Back at the house, she handed the tools to Ava. "Your hands need to change this," she said. Ava hesitated, then began unscrewing the old lock, her fingers clumsy but determined. Lydia stood beside her, guiding when necessary, silent when not. When the new lock clicked into place, Ava let out a shaky breath. "It feels different now," she said softly. "It should," Lydia replied. "This is your first line of defense, and a symbol that you'll never let someone walk out with your life again." As evening fell, the house smelled of stew simmering on the stove. Lydia had cooked while Ava sorted papers and Janet stacked them neatly into labeled folders. They ate together at the table, no laughter, but no sharp words either. Just the steady rhythm of spoons against bowls and the occasional sigh. After dinner, Ava stood and cleared the dishes without being asked. She returned from the kitchen and lingered by the doorway, her hands twisting nervously. "Mom," she said. "Yes. I need to say it again. I'm sorry. Yesterday I told you that you had no place here anymore. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wanted to feel like this house was mine, that I was finally in control of something. But I was wrong. This house exists because of you. Everything in my life exists because of you." Lydia listened, her face calm. She didn't rush to fill the silence. "I don't deserve forgiveness," Ava continued, her voice breaking. "But I want to earn it. If you'll let me." Lydia rose slowly from her chair and crossed the room. She placed her hand gently on Ava's cheek. "You don't have to earn a place in my heart, Ava. You've always been there. But respect, trust, responsibility, those you will earn. Day by day." Ava nodded, pressing her face into her mother's palm like she had when she was a child. The next morning, Lydia stood at the front door with the keys in her hand. She paused, then slipped them onto the small hook by the wall. Her hook, the one she had used for 30 years. She turned, looking around the living room. For the first time in days, the house felt like hers again. Not because she had shouted or demanded, but because she had walked away with dignity and returned with strength. She looked at Ava, who sat at the table with a notebook open, writing out a budget for the first time in her life. Janet was beside her, checking the numbers. The sight filled Lydia with something close to peace. She stepped onto the porch, letting the sunlight fall across her face. A breeze moved through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughed, the sound light and unbroken. Lydia closed her eyes for a moment and breathed it in. She had been told she had no place here anymore. But she knew now, without question, that her place was exactly here. Not as a guest, not as an afterthought, but as the foundation that could not be shaken. And as the door clicked shut behind her, the house stood steady, carrying its lessons in every wall, ready for the new life being built inside.